minutes for others to join us. So my name is Shanadiah Nicole. I am part of the Virginia Production Alliance, Hampton Roads District. And this today is our first of a series. It's called the Book to Screenplay to Film. And I am happy that you guys are joining us. We have so many artists here in Hampton Roads and probably other places as well. But in Hampton Roads where they take books and write screenplays or have screenplays and
It'll be the focal place of the living room.
Some people never get it into a film. However, our artist, she did that. I am going to read some of her bio, and let's see here. And as we're waiting for some others. So Jasmine Deanne Andrews is a screenwriter, director, and the published author of Sullied Bride. Her IMDb credits include the 2001 feature film Natalie's Abortion and 2019 feature film The Curse of Eve, where she won in the category of Best Director in the World Music and Independent Film Festival. Natalie's Abortion also received accolades for Best Cinematographer, Best Actress, and Best Actor in the WMIFF in 2021. She is an award-winning screenwriter, received second place in the 2018 and 2019 Virginia Production Alliance Screenwriting Competition for Natalie's Abortion. Jasmine is passionate about women's issues and is devoted to filmmaking as an art. She is deeply involved in the community and created her production company, Sullied Bride Productions, in order to give the women the opportunity to tell our stories ourselves. So, and I want to read some of the things. Natalie's Abortion is a film. The Curse of Eve also is a film, as mentioned. The book Sullied Bride, you can actually get that on Amazon and at barnesandnoble.com. What else is there? And then, she has different like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and she can get into that at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, this is Jasmine Deanne Andrews. She's one of my favorite artists here as well. And of course, I'm not the only person that feels that way. I mean, she has proven to be a great artist with those different awards, and also winning the 2018-2019 second place for our screenwriting competition. So she's very talented. I'm very excited for her to be able to expound on her journey of, from book to screenplay to film. So without further ado, Jasmine Deanne Andrews.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. So thank you for the warm introduction. I wrote Sullied Bride, and it was not actually the first book I wrote. The first book I wrote was actually like a fantasy novel, and it's still a work in progress. I still haven't worked on it, but Sullied Bride was actually started out as an essay about stuff that, people would say in church that was not necessarily consistent with scripture in terms of how they treated women. And I just started writing these essays just because I was just noticing just very deeply entrenched social norms that affect the way people interact with women. And as I studied the Adam and Eve story, that's is deeply entrenched in media, to see the idea that the woman gave the fruit to the man. It was almost like she sexually seduced him away from paradise. And then when you actually read the account in Genesis, that's not even close to what happened. And if I could get into details about it, it was first, the word helpmate is misleading because every single translation omits the Hebrew word neged, Oh, by the way, I studied a little bit Hebrew, which means to strongly oppose or contend. And so for the woman's point of view, or her position was not necessarily to be some type of subordinate helper. Her role was to actually contend or support the man. And then that changes the dynamics of, well, some men don't necessarily like to be challenged by women. So that kind of maybe puts a little bit of motive on the part of Adam to think, well, what do I need somebody challenging me for? Then if you look further, even before Eve was created, God told Adam to name the animals. And he had named the animals, and naming it something is not just thinking of something that sounds pretty, it's assigning a character trait. And Adam named the snake Nasa, one who hisses, deceiver, show of force. And this is all before Eve was created. So then, after Adam has met the snake, named the snake, you go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, where it says, she gave the fruit to her husband who was with her. Now, that means he wasn't just standing off somewhere, or this happened when he wasn't on his guard. Like, Adam was standing there with Eve when the snake was lying to her. And now that Eve was there to contend or challenge him, which is different from a subordinated position, that Adam had met the snake before. Now there seems to be intent, motive, and sabotage. And just going from the reading, it took years of Hebrew study to actually bring out all of those points. And what we have in the media, starting before even film was invented, you had these Renaissance paintings, and these paintings just depict a seductive woman holding out this temptation. And that's where a lot of people get their ideas about the Bible, or the story about Adam and Eve and women in general. And this has been just in the culture, in everybody's face forever, in literature, the way certain tropes in stories where the woman is always like there to kind of upset the man, or ruin his plans, or the temptress, the Jezebel, those are typical tropes that come up in literature and stories that women play. And so from this book, I wanted to show these themes in film, because it's not always easy to describe passive aggressive behavior in words. It's so much easier to show it if you have a visual medium, like something like gaslighting, which was a film by a writer, and then it became a psychological term, because when people could actually see the effects of somebody denying reality so strongly to get someone to doubt their own perceptions. And when you see that in film, it makes a much more powerful impact, and people know what you're talking about, as opposed to, if you're just telling the story and say, well, this person did this to me and they said this, then people might arouse, well, what did you say to him first? So that's how the connection with Sullied Bride Productions of, you have the origin of the first woman, how she's been depicted from the lies people say in church, how she's been depicted from the lies the way women are depicted in the media, and then transitioning that to tell different stories and to basically change the way people start to view and interact with each other. So
Okay, so so bring us to your thesis and how it became a book.
Right. My thesis was because my background is in applied mathematics, and for my master's thesis, I was sitting there and I'm trying to research and think about, what am I supposed to be writing about? And it became a real issue of when I realized that I'm not supposed to be writing about what somebody has already said. I'm supposed to be writing my own revelation and what have I come up with, or what have I observed that's new and different. And so that writing just a master's thesis for mathematics about fractals, it kind of changed my thinking in that this this journey that I'm on with film and media and everything else is not just about telling something that's already been told. It's about saying, looking at the situation and what am I seeing here that's different, and what can somebody else see that's different too, and how can that be told and brought into the consciousness of the viewers and everybody else involved. So
Okay, and so how long between your thesis did it take to get you to your book? How long did it take you to write the book?
the book, I would say it took me about a year to write the book. I was going through a pretty rough time in my life. A lot of things weren't going exactly the way I had anticipated and planned. And I noticed that I would wake up in the morning and I would just be really depressed and kind of steeping over just the past and things that had happened. And then I just made a New Year's resolution that I'm not going to do that anymore. What I want to do is, instead of just being upset about these things, I'm going to write it down and connect it to the projects that I was working on. So I made a commitment to myself that first, get up when you wake up. Like, that was, instead of spending an hour in bed, if I woke up at 5:15, just get up right then instead of laying there until 6:15. And then in that time, instead of just steeping, now, even though I'm going through the same emotions, I'm starting to write and put it to something productive and apply it to, like I said, these events in my life that have been really negative, like just talking and being interrupted a lot, or trying to convey something to somebody and them assuming that the situation was something other than what it was, based off of some stereotype that they saw in a movie somewhere, or just some trope that just has been repeated over and over again. And then those journal entries started to become a essay. And then I looked up and realized these essays I was writing every month were a chapter. And so I went through, refined it. And so it took me about a year to write, and then after that year, I realized that I wasn't depressed anymore. And now I had this book, and now I needed to pursue these thoughts and getting them out and published and everything else.
And so when you had your book and, it's complete, you went through a publishing process, I'm assuming. Okay. And
Yes.
then how long after that did your desire, or what triggered you to want to do a screenplay of it?
I had actually wanted to do the screenplay before the book was written, because this was not planned. This was not like in my layout for life, because I never really thought I would write nonfiction or write commentary about the Bible or anything like that. It just came. But I noticed that the theme of the script, because for The Curse of Eve, which I would say is somewhat like the narrative version of what this, if you were to take a character who was experiencing all the things that were happening in this book, from the depiction of women in the beginning to the concept of submission that is often pushed on women, that's the effect of this character in a marriage. And in the original draft for The Curse of Eve, the story did not go the way it did in the final draft. It was more supposed to be about reconciliation, where people realized that this is what they were doing and then, stop. But based off of the way people responded to the book itself and the resistance I got from the idea that, yes, submission is actually not a godly concept and we're called to stand firm, the resistance I got from the audience somewhat changed the end of the script. So when I finished it, it was an entirely different story from what I had mentally thought up. So after Sullied Bride was published, and then so I'm in the next year, I'm like, all right, well, I need to set some more goals because I still want to do this film. And I had an outline. So it took me maybe, I would say a couple of months, because even though the script had been in my mind for a long time, like there's a difference between something being in your mind and you actually putting it on paper. So after that, I had to visualize, all right, this character is passive aggressive. What does that look like? That looks like you put something down, you put your computer down, leave the room, and then in the next moment, the computer is gone. And then you're like, where's my computer? And then they're like, what are you talking about? That when you see that played out in visually, now you get some real idea of what it means to be with somebody who's gaslighting you or trying to make you think that you're crazy. And so that process, yeah, it took about a couple of months, but I typically say it took a year to finish the script, because even though the actual writing was probably only a couple months of work, the just getting up to doing it, because I was also very afraid too. I wasn't confident. And I was like, all right, I'm going to write this script, but then what am I going to do? I don't know any other actors. I mean, I've never, I haven't successfully directed people for a while, or, you know, just getting people together who would actually commit to the project or even believe in it, or not say, well, this just seems dumb. It took a lot to just go through and just be like, no, just write the story, just write the script, and eventually all the people you're seeking, you'll be able to find. And it worked out exactly like that, because I started doing short films about domestic violence when I was working with Transitions, and that's the domestic violence shelter in this area. And from working on those short films, I started to build my confidence up in terms of directing people, organizing the actual shoots, editing. Well, I didn't have any confidence issues with editing, but because that's something I could do by myself. But just in terms of engaging people, and then I started to meet more actors in the area, because I met one person who was an actor. I don't want to say who the first, but I would say it was probably Arlene. And Arlene Spala, she introduced me to other actors, and they had their group, and it just went from there where, all right, now that I met this one person, she'll introduce me to someone, and then someone else introduces me to someone. And then I was like, all right, I think I actually have enough people to do The Curse of Eve by the end of the year. And then when the next year rolled around, I was like, all right, now I'm just going to, that's my goal for this year. I'm going to shoot this film.
Okay, so take me into how the order of The Curse of Eve and Sullied Bride, or okay, like Sullied Bride was Curse of Eve and Natalie's abortion based from Sullied Bride. Like how do the three of them, you know, play out with each other?
Right. The Curse of Eve is essentially about the idea that this woman is living under the curse that she is going to desire this man and he's going to rule over her. Because that's what it says in Genesis 3:16. And the curse is the fact that the belief that that is just your plight in life as a woman, and that that's how you're supposed to live, when in reality that is a curse. But with Messiah, with Yeshua, that's Jesus in Hebrew, you are empowered to overcome that curse, and that you are not to be ruled over, that you've been redeemed from that position and now you are equal. But in the Curse of Eve, like, what do you hear in a typical marriage vow? To honor, love, trust, and obey, or, you know, submit unto his authority in the household. And the idea that people keep pushing that this hierarchy is the way a male is supposed to interact with a female in a marriage, that's what the Curse of Eve is. And it's subtle in just the way people interact with you, because I don't want to give away too many spoilers in a movie, but if in certain scenes, when she's in church, she's the youngest one there, and everyone's kind of like, oh, it's so sweet that y'all are young and went about it the right way. And the way people are like, oh, so when are you having babies? That's such an invasive question, but what is that based off of? It's based off of the concept that that's the only role a woman plays in a relationship and doesn't offer anything else. and just the assumption that it's an appropriate question to ask, because it's a very personal question. I know that people get very familiar quickly or think that that's, that's socially acceptable, but it really isn't, because there could be a lot of reasons why you don't want somebody asking you that question. It could be you have been trying to get pregnant and have just had a miscarriage and you don't want to talk about it. It could be you're in a relationship and you're starting to have doubts about, I don't know if I trust this person. You could just be married and you're like, well, maybe I just enjoy having sex and not trying to think about having kids. I mean, it's a lot of reasons why people shouldn't speak to a newlywed couple that way, but it's just so ingrained in people that this is how you can just ask these questions or talk to a young woman this way. And then slowly, as the story develops, you start to see how problematic the people's perception of her is in contrast to him, and where they're not really noticing that he's exhibiting some actually very troubling behaviors that aren't being addressed. So that's in the connection with Sullied Bride and the Curse of Eve. And with Natalie's abortion, that story is centered around a rape. And there was a lot of instances of rape in the Bible. And the reaction of the men in those time periods was either, well, get married, just marry your rapist, like that's going to somehow cover up the sin, because they were so modest about sex outside of marriage that was seen as a solution. Or the issue was, now the woman would just be left with this child. And if you notice in those long lists of genealogies, sometimes there'll just be a name in there, but it's not connected to who the father is or where that child was begot. It's just there. And that implies that there was some type of inappropriate behavior that occurred in the conception. And then there's issue was just to not write about it, not talk about it. And so Natalie's abortion focuses on actually, like, this is something that people need to face head on. This is something that needs to be addressed. And it's not just going to be addressed by being silent about it. It's not going to be addressed by just trying to say, well, just forgive the person. It's like, no, this needs to be dealt with. And this follows her story of the emotional aftermath she has to deal with, even with her husband, because he was also a victim of that rape, and how they had to have that difficult face each other after that experience, and then reconcile with each other for healing.
And so let's go to some of the logistics. So how long did it take to film A Curse of Eve? And then how long did it take to film Natalie's abortion?
All right. So for filming The Curse of Eve, we started in May and finished in August. And when we filmed in May, we just filmed one weekend in May, but the official start was the end of June. We just had one scene that we needed to do in May that was just the opportunity when we went up to the Cherowinhaka tribe to film the powwow scene and the scene with Chief Brown, because by the way, Chief Brown was just wonderful, because he just came in and we had just such a great relationship. And then he was just really eager about being in the movie, and he got to talk about some of the issues that were going on in the tribe, and about getting federal recognition and seeking out, just different stuff from the past. But that was just one weekend in May. Then the official start was the end of June, and we filmed on the weekends and one day during the week from the end of June to August the 8th. And it was, so we'd be there all days on the weekend, and then a few hours. And it was over the summer, and I'm still somewhat on the school schedule. So I was working with Mel, who's working for the school system at the time. So he had the summer off. So it was kind of like being at camp, and it was really fun. And we just did the wedding scene, the scenes in the house, and just the, couple of the other scenes. And it was that was the length it took. The editing took a lot longer than I had anticipated, because I would be so exhausted from filming. I just felt like, all right, I'm just going to film this, and then the next day I'll just work on this, and then I'd be sore from holding the camera all day. And and then I just remember I would edit all day. Sometimes this was after we had wrapped up the filming, and then I'd look up and it'd only be 5 minutes done, and I would just be in front of the laptop just crying so much. And I can laugh about it now, but it was the most dramatic moment in that time. And then with Natalie's Abortion, it was kind of the same thing, but it was not as long, because that film is a little bit faster paced. We started in May, actually, just to do one scene. And then the official start was in June. And then we finished at the end of July. So it was about 2 months, and we just filmed on Sundays for that 2 month period. And then I think maybe a few days, like we filmed like the last fight scene on the Thursday, because Joel, who was great, he played the part of the masked man, the villain of the story, he was leaving. So he's like, all right, we need to do this now. And I'm like, well, where are you going? And he apparently was leaving the state forever. But he was so great about making sure that he got all his scenes done, and, really had a lot of respect for the project to make sure he didn't just leave us without finishing up. But that was the time frame of that. And then, since we were only filming on the weekends, on Sundays, I wasn't as exhausted. So I edited that while we were filming. So I completed it a lot faster.
So because of you had already done the first one, the second go around was a lot quicker, and you knew, as far as editing and timing, to space it out and give yourself time to do so. Seems like.
Right. It's like when people women have babies, and the first one they say is always the hardest labor, and then the second one and third, they kind of go a lot smoother. It's a little bit like that.
Okay. And so back to, you said that you had met Arlene, and when you
Yes.
met her, who all did you meet, and the connection? Because when doing a film, good thing you are your own editor, but some people need, they do need someone, they need grips, they need not just actors, that, sometimes makeup artists, hair, they need an array of crew. So did you meet everyone? How did you meet everyone to establish a crew for Curse of Eve? And were they the same one for Natalie's Abortion?
Well, in terms of crew, I was somewhat of a one-woman show. I had people helping, but it was like me kind of doing the camera. And this is one thing that I would like to do in terms of expanding and meeting more people, is I know what it's going to look like when I edit. I know what shots to get. And so I'm just sitting here and I just kind of outline the stuff in my mind, and I'm just holding all that together, because it's more than just directing. I'm sitting there and I'm piecing this story together as we're doing it. And one thing I would like to be able to communicate with people more and be able to explain my vision, because I'm just sitting there and I know I don't have to have a conversation with myself. I already know what I see, and just kind of putting it together. So I would like to expand and work with more people. And I have been able to do that with the Crumble project that I'm a part of now, and other folks working more with a crew. And it's just been a big learning experience too, just learning from different mistakes that you can make with sound or lighting, and just how to, just get better at that, and eventually get to the point where, like I said, I don't have to wake up sore in the morning from moving all this stuff myself, and just being so focused, and just being able to kind of relax more. But yeah, I met Arlene, and she introduced me to most of the actors that I worked with.
Okay. And so I want to go back really quickly to your timeline. So when you first started the book, what year, which is really the essays, but even still, what year was that? Because I would like to get like a good timeline on book. It's going to take this amount of time, and everyone's different. So, but what was your timeline from starting what year with the book? Then it's done. Then you got the process of the publishing and doing that whole thing, and then you start your, even if you start during it, though I guess you could, for your screenwriting for Curse of Eve and Natalie's abortion, or were you working on them at the same time? Like, give me that timeline too.
Right. I would say the book in terms of essays, that was around 2013 to 2014. I know it seems like ancient history at this point. And then to publication, was I was seeking a publisher and then found one around 2015. The book was released in 2016. I started working on a script for The Curse of Eve, even though the idea for The Curse of Eve had come up at the same time that I was writing the essays for Sullied Bride. But like I said, it was just a thought and an outline. But after Sullied Bride came out in 2016, I made, it was just part of my, like I made a list of goals in the new year in the spring. And just, so I started working on this actual script. So from 2016 to 2017, I did the script for The Curse of Eve. And then in 2018, we were filming The Curse of Eve and then released that in 2019. And then while we were filming The Curse of Eve, I think it was about like almost the end of the year, I just hunkered down and wrote the script for Natalie's abortion. And that was like a really short script to write because the script actually only turned out to be 40 pages. I thought it was going to be a little longer. And it was kind of like, I have had night terrors from time to time, not like recently, but I used to have that pretty often. And then that's when I wrote the script or the outline for Natalie's abortion. And then somewhere before The Curse of Eve, or before, I think before I even started filming The Curse of Eve, that's when I finished the script. And then it just kind of just dumped it somewhere because I was just like, wow, this is terrifying. And and just moved on. But then after The Curse of Eve was released in 2019, and then everyone's like, well, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And I was kind of thinking about that script for Natalie's abortion. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just do that. I mean, it's finished, it's here. And I think it was, a story initially really terrified me. And then a lot of people that I talked to said, well, then that means that you should do it. That's exactly what you should do. So from 2019, I was still talking and in contact with a lot of the folks from The Curse of Eve. And then I just made my goals for 2020, which was, kind of an awful year, but it was still just pushed through. And we filmed Natalie's abortion and released that in 2021.
So in terms of financing, like, so let's go back to Curse of Eve, the financial part of that. What kind of financial costs did you endure? And like, in the end, was there like a what number was that? And were there any unexpected, for The Curse of Eve?
So I would say it's a feature, it's still somewhat of a micro budget film. And when I was working with my brother with different things with the city, they taught something called asset-based community development, where you make your budget based off of, all right, yes, everybody loves money and it helps a lot of things, but what can you build based off of assets that you have available to you? And the biggest assets that I had were actors who just wanted to be in the film. So, and they were committed and they took it seriously. So that was the big asset there. And then I invested in camera equipment and lights. And so that was a cost. And then I had paid a couple places for locations, but also I had family who just lent their place for the location to film all summer. And then especially given the nature of the story, where it's not just this elaborate sci-fi film where you need a lot of special effects or anything. It just was about a couple in a house. So with The Curse of Eve, the budget ended up about $3,500. And the same with Natalie's abortion. That was about the cost of filming both of those.
Okay. So that's not joint. That's 3,500 each, right? If I'm okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. Okay. So you talked about being tired, and you talked about, though you had a great cast of people around you to, help with locations or, acting and anything. Is there anything with The Curse of Eve or even Natalie's abortion to where was unexpected, like maybe some type of advice that you would give to someone to watch out for?
Right. It's sometimes when you are filming scenes that are really emotional, that they can actually have a real emotion on the actors and the people you're working with. So it's especially just to make sure that as a director that you are aware of the impact that these scenes can have on the people you're working with. So this, just to be aware of their emotional state and how doing the stuff, because even though it's acting, it can still have a very real effect on people. So that's something that was very unexpected and just to be aware of. And
Okay, thank you. Also, let's see, so the process now of after it's a film now and you've edited this, describe to us the process it took to get a premiere and even a release. I mean, at this point, the good thing about technology these days is that there are so many ways to put your material out there. Like there's the Roku channel, there's YouTube, we have so many different, avenues of release. But tell me what your process was of, having this edited, done work, and now you want to go into getting a premiere.
Right. With The Curse of Eve, I had no idea where to start. I just knew that, well, the first thing is just finish the film and then figure that out later. And I just called up different theaters and said, hey, I have this film, I'd like to premiere it. And some theaters were kind of like, oh, we don't do that. Some were like, well, this is what it costs. And I'm like, all right, well, I already spent this much. I don't have that much with me. And then I found the Fort Monroe Theater in Hampton. And well, technically Fort Monroe is Fort Monroe, Virginia, but I'm just going to claim it's part of Hampton. And it was just, I knew the instant I looked at it, I was like, this is the place. And it had a very symbolic meaning to me, because during the Civil War, Fort Monroe was a refuge for the contraband of slaves who had escaped, and the fort would not turn them back over into slavery. So like there were a lot of escaped slaves who came to Fort Monroe and became free there. And so obviously I've not had like the hardships of slavery in my life, but it was really uplifting to me to be at that historical site doing something that was not necessarily typical, woman of color producing a film, it took a lot of barriers to get across, to get to that point. And then the theater was just available. And I just really liked the theater. I even liked the look of it and the seats and everything. So once I did that with The Curse of Eve, it was just kind of expected I would do that with Natalie's abortion also. And then I got the film on Amazon. They censored Natalie's abortion on Amazon. I was really hurt about that. Yes, but other people recommended different streaming services. So now it's with Late Flicks on Vimeo, where you can watch Natalie's abortion. And then hopefully in time, maybe the censorship issue will be addressed, because people are very much afraid to deal with these women's issues head on. It's a lot of people like to have very strong opinions about abortion or how women should handle various topics, but there's also somewhat of a sense that there's this separation from people actually having to deal with it head on. It's like, well, have you ever witnessed a birth? Do you even know what happens in a regular gynecology appointment? I mean, because even as an adult with no malice, I've been at the gynecologist and cried because this is, really uncomfortable and etc. But that was the process of getting the films premiered and seeking the different platforms.
Good. And so talk about the different platforms for a second, because you did mention, you were censored on Amazon. Did you get a lot of that from the other platforms? Like, what were there any questions or any kind of pushback because of the nature of this, of it being so sensitive?
Yes, it was a lot. It was like the first thing. Now, I guess I'll tell like the funniest part first is just when I finished the script for Natalie's abortion, and I showed it to my brother, and he looked at the title and he is like, how do you expect to sell this film to anybody? Why don't you write a comedy? Like, people want to feel good. And it was just it's true. And I actually would like to write a comedy at some point, because I'm not as serious as my film topics make me seem. And there's a lot of that, because a lot of people that I described the film and the story to, they were like, yeah, this is a great topic, but our sponsors don't want to back something like that, or we don't want to put money behind that because it's so political, as they call it. And actually, one of the main goals of the film was to take this topic, which has been highly politicized, it's been polarized with two very strong opposing opinions, and actually just show, well, this is just the story of this one woman's experienced trauma and then healing and getting redeemed from that trauma. So at the same time, I just pursued it to authentically tell the story just as it is. But then after you're done, there is a lot of pushback because people like to take the safe road. And I don't hold that against people, because I understand why. But at the same time, I think it's really important that at some point we need to stop trying to be safe and please people and just face the worst thing that you can think of head on. And that was somewhat in how I had to develop my own confidence of back in 2013, when I would just be in bed steeping about, stuff that had happened and disappointments in life, where I finally got to the point like, no, I just have to confront this. I can't just be in this state of ruminating over it. I just have to confront what's the worst thing that I feel like could happen. That I take something that I've written, put it out there, and then someone says it's the worst thing they've ever read. And that could happen. But now that I've confronted it, I'm not afraid of that. And that's what really people need to do, is in doses, because you don't want to overrun yourself with too much hard material, but confront what is the worst thing that you are afraid of dealing with right now. Are you afraid that our culture might descend into like a violent, grotesque type of society like the Romans and the Circus Maximus and the gladiator arena if we address the topic of abortion, where you are just literally sacrificing children on altars? Or is that what we're afraid of? Because if that's what you're afraid of, then that's what you need to confront. And that's what the goal was with that film. And that was the pushback that we get, because a lot of people like to just, drink their donuts and coffee and go about their day and not think about it.
Well, was that some of the reason why some of the venues that you spoke of before you got to Fort Monroe, was that one of the reasons why some of them said no as well? Not just money, but was that, I don't know if, did you hear that?
Well, not so much with the venues. It was the streaming platforms that I got the pushback from on Natalie's abortion.
Oh, got you. Okay. So now we're going to go into the question and answer portion from the audience. And so if you have any questions, you can please put them in the chat and I will read them to Jasmine. So our first question comes from Deontay White. His question says, my questions are, what would Jasmine say was her highest point of filming and her lowest point? And if I could ask a second question, who are some of her contemporaries from Virginia and worldwide she wants to work together with in the future? So we'll go with the first one first. What was your highest point and your lowest point?
So my highest point was probably the first day of filming on The Curse of Eve. It was July 4th. Well, actually, it's not the first day, but it was the biggest group shot on July 4th. And I picked that date because it's a holiday. People will be off from work, but it's not a holiday like Thanksgiving, where folks are doing stuff with their family and have different obligations. And when I walked in, and I was so terrified, I was just like, these people are going to laugh at me. But then when I walked in and I just quietly said, all right, so we're going to start with this scene and this is where I want everybody. And then everyone just went into their role, and I realized, wow, people listen and they care about what they're doing here. So that was one of the highest points. And the fact that it was on July 4th, which is freedom, for this whole country. And I'm like, yeah, now I get to experience it, because like I said, I'm still on the school schedule mentally. Both my parents were teachers growing up. We never celebrated the 4th of July because we were already out of school. So it's like, well, what kind of holiday is this? I'm already on vacation for summer. But that was the highest point where I was like, yeah, I actually am a director, and people listen and they care about my project. The lowest point would be one of the scenes we were filming, and it was kind of emotional, and the actress I was working with, she got kind of upset, and then I didn't expect that she would have that reaction, and she didn't either. And I was so horrified, because I was like, I don't want to be that tyrant on the set who like torments the people they're working with, because it's like, she came and she made my project, and now she's upset, and it just upset me, and I would even have like bad dreams about it after. So that was the lowest point. But the high point was definitely getting that start and getting the support from everybody.
Thank you. So we'll go with his second question. It was, who are some of your contemporaries from Virginia and worldwide that you would want to work with in the future?
Right. Everybody. Anybody who wants to work with me or just wants me, I'll just probably show up and invite them. If I could be more specific to in the outside world, I've always admired Halle Berry as an actress because when she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, and she was the first African American woman to win it, and then when she made her speech and she talked about everybody else who was in Hollywood with her, and I was like, see, that's what a gracious woman looks like, someone who can just take her moment and share it with everybody else. So I've always admired that about her. And then even just um just I mean, I guess she's the main one that comes to mind right off, um that I would want to work with. And then people here in Virginia, like, I want to work with you.
Sorry. Okay, also, so the next question comes from Sandy Delevante, if I hope I'm saying that right. Her question is, in addition to the asset-based community development, did you explore funding options specifically for minority women filmmakers?
I did a little bit, but not successfully. That's why I didn't bring it up. Hopefully I'll be able to have more success later, maybe with more experience. But that's something I would definitely want to do.
Okay. And Kelvin Seeley ask, if you could change something in the process, what would it be?
Well, I guess kind of like the last question, probably funding, because people tend to fund the things that they support. And I would like more support for different diverse ideas and different things, the type of stuff that makes people uncomfortable, where if you're dealing with a topic that is verging on a little controversial, it's going to be a lot harder to find funding for it, but it will be very easy to get funding to support a film that is full of your typical tropes. It's going to be like the big box office hit. That will be the main thing I would like to change, is just availability for funding for different local, smaller productions, for different stories that are not necessarily commercial, but still valuable, and potentially commercial, but someone to just take the risk and do it.
Thank you. I have, let's see. Oh, there's one more. It says, what would you say to a new screenwriter developing their first major script? Followed by, what would you say to an experienced screenwriter that has never had a major project?
Right. Well, for the first, if it's your first one, and just don't be afraid, pursue it. And then as you're analyzing or editing, don't try to edit yourself while you're writing it. Just write what comes to mind first. Then after you have the words on the page, and if you go back and want to look over it and change some things, just think about, what have I seen in movies before, and what makes what I'm telling different? What is important about what I'm trying to say? And that way you can kind of protect yourself from, you don't want to just be rehashing the same old stories that have been told before, and really set yourself apart, and just don't be afraid to be different. And for someone who's experienced and hasn't had any major productions, just don't think about it. Just keep pursuing it, because there are a lot of people, writers, who, like John Grisham, for instance, he wrote books. He was a lawyer. He started writing about different stories, and he wrote The Firm. That was his first major successful book, which became a screenplay. But then after that, everything else he did came up with A Time to Kill and the other stories he had written. So if you've never had a major project, don't think that's a reflection of what you've done or anything about you. It just means that you just haven't got your audience yet.
Nice. Let me see. So I have a question, and you kind of sort of answered it, but I wanted to know, in what ways, or yeah, in what ways did your short films that you were doing at Transitions help you with your first, how did it build your confidence? I know you touched on it, but I wanted to further explore that because working at Transitions is very emotional. So I wanted you to be able to expound on that if you would.
Yes, like working at Transitions gave me that opportunity because when I first went in, I know I bit off a lot more than I could chew. Because if your first project is this huge script and you've never worked with actors before or never know what's involved and you're still learning, you can really just end up with, putting a lot of work into something that you weren't able to complete. And that was personally hurtful to me. And it kind of battered down my confidence of like, who do you think you are? But doing those short films, it helped me because I was learning as I was working on those short films, and I was able to have something that was at least one complete project. So I could have something to show when I say I'm a film director, here's my film, and it might be 2 minutes, but it's done. So like, that's how you learn. So that's another thing I would say to screenwriters or anybody: write your big screenplay, write the big thing, but then also in the meantime, like have a short-term goal where maybe just write a 5-page script and then take a weekend to do that. And then that helps you learn stuff because it's just stuff that is unexpected that you won't think about until you're actually doing it, because experience is one of the best teachers. And you can gain that experience with something that you can complete in a short time. And then after a year or so, maybe doing short films every month, then you will be ready or prepared to do something bigger, and that the long-term goal comes into view.
Thank you. Also, talk a little bit about the screenwriting competition when you entered it in the 2018-2019. And also, not just that, but also the other festivals that you entered the different works in.
Yes, I went to the Percolator, film Percolator. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. It was an event, and I say Percolator, and I don't know if I'm just thinking about the song, if that's what it's actually called.
Yeah, it is.
I went to the event and I was just mingling because I wanted to get to know more film people in the local area. And then I was in a conversation with Dave Hobbs, and he just told me about the screenwriting contest. And I was like, oh, I have a screenplay. I'm scared of this screenplay, but I have it. And he's like, yeah, just send it in. And I was like, all right. And that's how I got it in. He just told me about it and I sent it because it was just sitting on my bookshelf, and I had it. And Arlene, she was the one who told me about the World Music and Independent Film Festival because she had done a lot of work in different films that had been in that festival. And I submitted both The Curse of Eve and Natalie's Abortion to that film festival. I submitted to a film festival in Israel because I've been to Israel a couple of times, and I was like, well, this will just be neat, and that was accepted. And then there was a film festival in India too that it was accepted into, and I think it's just one night I was going to the computer, I'm like, well, whatever, just send in the application, and I just put the stuff in because you lose apply yourself, so just you can't win if you don't apply. So I just put it in and just see what happens.
And so how did you feel when you won like awards, or in your actors won awards as well?
I actually felt more for the actors than I did for me, because my big thing was I just wanted to finish the film. I just wanted to get it out there. And when I won the award, I was like, oh wow, this is really nice, because it was just fun to be acknowledged. And And my favorite part was just the dress. I mean, that's what I was there for. Because I'm not just about like, oh yeah, I want a trophy case. It was just like, no, I just like to dress up because I'm a little bit, prissy like that. But when the actors won and they were just saying like this was one of the best days of my life, and it was just like, wow, I was just so glad to be a part of something that was so meaningful to them. And I was just so proud of them because I was like, you definitely deserve this because all the work that we put into this, especially with the emotion from Natalie's abortion and how intense that storyline was. And it was just, I was like so happy for them. And it was just a great moment altogether.
Thank you. So if there aren't any more questions, oh wait, there is another. Okay. This just in, hot off the press, from Sandy Delavante. Did winning awards help with the distribution, or will you re-release it following the awards?
Yes, I intend to re-release it because I'm very much about creating the art and the content, and I need help with marketing. It's just something I need help with because it's not a skill that I have, and it's just I've that's what the person I've been talking to has said, that you need to play this up more. You need to go lead with that. You're an award-winning director, and because I guess just the same way I'm sitting here just thinking about my dress, and this woman's telling me like, no, like this is serious. You can like really push with this. So I believe it does help, but I just need some help in figuring out how to get it in distribution, in wider and more people being exposed to the media.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions now, some of it you went into when it came to talking about it, like you talked about Amazon and whatnot. So where could we find Sullied Bride?
Sullied Bride is on Amazon, but you can also get it at Barnes and Noble. You can order it basically if you type in Sullied Bride, Jasmine Andrews. The whole list will come up of all the different providers of booksellers for Sullied Bride. So.
Okay, and footnote to that is I ordered it some months ago on Amazon, and my daughter, she's 18, and she took it right out of my hands. I haven't seen it since. She said it was great. She did not give it back. However, I'm going to go and find it because I ordered it for me. But for an 18-year-old at that age where those type of issues are front and center, honestly, as a young woman in college bound and slightly sheltered, you could say that the fact that she did enjoy it, that it was something that she could understand, I thought that was awesome and amazing, because a lot of 18-year-olds these days do not want to read anything. They don't want to read captions on their television. So the fact that she said, hey, what is that? And I told her, she read the back, she took it, never saw it again. So but she did read it as well. So also for The Curse of Eve and Natalie's abortion, where could we view it? Or is it where can we view it if you wanted to see it?
Right. The Curse of Eve is also still on Amazon, but you can find The Curse of Eve on Late Flix Films, and which is on the Vimeo platform. And Natalie's Abortion is also available on Vimeo.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing is, what do you have coming up?
So right now, there's more with the Crumble project because we have Crumble Part 1 that's released, and I'm focused a lot on writing right now. That I do have a script I'm working on, and I'm just looking to hopefully get more funding for this to move beyond the asset-based community development and just work with that, because I have a lot of different stories I want to tell. I want to maybe go a little lighter just different projects in line. But I have another book. It's a work of fiction. It's about these three biracial children growing up in an abusive home and how they managed to get through these out of that household and into adulthood. It's called Quince Marshall is My Father. So I'm really looking forward to releasing that and people being able to hear that story, because it's not a story that has really been told a lot either.
Okay, thank you. So if there aren't any other questions, I think that's all that I have for you to bring up. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining in and participating with your questions. Again, I was very excited. Okay, so we will put let's see. I'm sorry, I'm reading at the same time. Um, oh, okay. Can we put the links for the films and book in the chat? So, I think we could do that. You could do that, huh? Jasmine, I'm sure you have it. If not,
Yes. I believe now I have to click away and I hope I don't look funny looking at the computer.
well, it's okay. You do that because I'm just going to talk a little bit. So, so oops, there it is. Okay. So while she's getting that or figuring that, let me make sure I cover all my bases. I just want to talk a little bit about Virginia Production Alliance. If you're not a member, please consider being a member. We are obviously, with our local talent, most of us on the board are artists ourselves in various genres. And so if you're not, please consider doing so. The Virginia Production Alliance, work with the film office, and we all work together to create opportunities and incentives through lawmakers to provide incentives for the bigger films to come here. So that way the bigger films come here, we as talent can have jobs, real jobs. So, and not saying that that the other jobs are not real, just real jobs in the industry. And I have quite a few friends that have and are doing that full time. Nonetheless, this is what Virginia Production Alliance does. And also, we're working on creating other avenues of broadcasting our local talent as well, as you can see. So if you have an interest in that, please, you can reach out to me. You can send me an email. My email is, matter of fact, I'll put it in the chat as well when I find it. My is Shanadiah 31@gmail.com. So it's SHANADIAH 31@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to Dave Hobbs if you know Dave Hobbs, or just reach out to me. Also, if you have any interest in being on our board, we'd be happy to talk with you, meet with you. So please reach out for that. We have a monthly board meeting. Of course, the first thing to do is to be a member. And you can get that. You can go to virginiaproductionalliance.org for that to join online. And let's see, I want to put it in the chat. I'm not quite sure if I can do that. It seems I can, but while I'm talking. However, just reach out to me for that, for any information that you need. If we don't get it in the chat quick enough, I'll stay on the line for a little while, for a few extra minutes, to get these different links and different email addresses on the chat so you could have them. If there are any other questions, we can do so. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or you can wave. Okay, so I don't know what's going on. Give me 1 second. There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna put I'm entering my email address in right now as well. To just reach out to me. To redo that. So Jasmine, if there's any last words that you have or would like to say or anything, please feel free at this time.
All right. Yes. Thank you guys for coming out and listening to me. And I hope that I was helpful and could inspire you. The biggest thing you could do right now is just watch the film, share it with your friends, leave a review, because basically getting these messages out into the public consciousness will do a lot in terms of changing how people view media. And if you're interested in working with me, just reach out. I'm on Facebook, just my full name, Jasmine Deanne Andrews, or Sullied Bride. And you can find me through these links on my social medias. And I'll be happy to hear about any projects y'all are interested in.
All right. And do you need, are you looking for any particular venues or any for your upcoming projects, or actors? Is there anything that you need coming up on with some of the projects that you're coming up on? Yes.
Probably, because I'm always looking for actors, always looking for venues. So if you have anything, just suggest it, and I'm pretty sure I could use it somewhere.
And I'm just looking at my notes. I meant to ask you this before, but I overlooked it. What exactly is Crumble?
Crumble is a multiple part series about crime and investigators. It's a crime cop drama.
Okay.
About Brooks and the different things they commit. So it's produced, written by Bill Douglas, Marcus Evans, and they invited me to be the director and editor for their project. So that's what Crumble is.
Awesome. Great choice. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for attending. Yes, thank you all so much for attending. So this will conclude the meeting. However, I will